Welcome to CEO with Sophie. Just a quick note from me. If you like what you hear, go ahead and join the CEO Club right now by hitting that subscribe button. Not only will you never miss an episode, but you'll also be helping us out more than you know. Thank you and enjoy. Our guest today is nothing short of a powerhouse, Sarah Katz, co-founder and president of Spalding Ridge, a true trailblazer in business advisory and technology services. Sarah is known for driving innovation, redefining leadership, and championing change in a fast evolving digital world. But her impact doesn't stop in the boardroom. Sarah is passionate about advocating for women in technology. From mentorship programs to keynote panels and roundtable discussions, she's helping pave the way for the next generation of female leaders. With a rare blend of sharp strategic insight, hands-on experience, and a bold vision for gender equality, it's no surprise she was honored with the Stevie Award for Women of the Year. Today we discuss the world of EQ, understanding what emotional intelligence is, the impact of consistency, and understanding self-awareness as a leader. Get ready to be inspired by a leader who's not just shaping industries, but uplifting voices along the way. Let's dive in with Sarah Katz. Hi, Sarah. Welcome to the podcast today. It's so good to have you here.
You too. Thank you for having me on. I'm really excited about this discussion.
Yeah, of course. I had to. We had such, well, we've had a few chats now, but every time I speak to you, you give me some great insights. And yeah, I wanted to share your experience with the world and your thoughts because yeah, it's pretty interesting. So let's give everyone a little bit of an idea around yourself, who you are, your background as well.
Sounds good. And thank you for doing this, by the way. This is great. So my name is Sarah Katz, and I'm a co-founder of Spalding Ridge. And really, my career has been dedicated to creating high-performing teams, really diving into technical but digital transformation. You can imagine now I'm super passionate about technology and just like challenging the status quo. And I think technology is just like such a big part of allowing us to do things differently and really enjoying everything that's even happening right now with AI as well.
Yeah. It's a great space to be in right now, and everyone's looking into it. So I'm glad that's going well. And how does it feel being a co-founder? How does that feel?
There's a lot of responsibility that comes with it. There's a lot of try it out, see what happens, and then change and pivot quickly.
Mhm.
And we've been doing this for 7 years. I've actually worked with my CEO co-founder for the last 18. This is the second time. 18 years is a long time. Never thought that would happen, but I'm really happy of everything the opportunities and the people I've been able to work with that are on the client side, but also at our company.
Yeah. 10 years is a long time, but at least you know the person now. Yeah. So that's good. And that hopefully that relationship before hopefully made it even easier starting a business together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, love that. So I really want to talk to you around the leadership piece because obviously you've got many years within leadership. You, I know, are very much an advocate for obviously women in tech, but women in leadership as well. So I want to go into that, and I'd like to ask you around what you think the key skill in leadership or just general life is.
This is something I've thought a lot about even more recently. And it's really, I wish that I actually learned this in even grade school, high school, before career. We learned a lot of different fundamental things, specifically like how do you communicate? How do you work with others or like build like team perspectives? And I think emotional quotient, so EQ, is one that has taken me over many years to learn and still learning as we speak. And I guess to make it simple, emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence stands out as a very pivotal skill, as you rise up in leadership, as you start a company, as you build connections and relationships, being able to connect authentically, being able to navigate complexities, because that's just, part of life, but also part of business. And also, how do you foster different types of environments and leaning into the culture or creating a culture? So I just think emotional intelligence is We hear it a lot more now, but when I was growing up, it wasn't something that I even appreciated.
I agree. I don't think anyone really spoke to me about it when I was younger. And it's something that, as you go throughout your career, hopefully businesses are going to talk about it more. It's something that I think is really underrated, and it's definitely a skill. Even if you just look at, if I'm hiring, it's something that, like, are people aware of it? Are people, do they have emotional intelligence? Is really the question that I sometimes ask, because I think that's important when you are, in any role, but especially within like a sales business or, consulting such as yourselves. It's probably something that's very important. What does it mean to you though? Like, how would you break it down? Because obviously, like, it's quite a broad subject.
And I think that's part of there are components that we might have learned and are learning just because of being human, to be frank. And I'll break it down into the 5 dimensions of it. But before I do, it's one of those things where you might be doing it already, you're just not aware too. So it's just like refining it and optimizing it, just like any other skill. So the 5 things, and I've really just like, even if you go back and you just rate yourself, go, where do I scale 1 to 10 in one, self-awareness? So if you think about one's emotions and your impact. So like what's their impact? And I think knowing and appreciating your mood, knowing and understanding how you feel about it, because that's really hard. Really hearing your thoughts and then what you do with those gets you to owning your emotional strengths and weaknesses. And like, for example, like for me, I like to be mischievous, and there's a good part of it where it's playful and fun, but it also could be not so much. And, and just really understanding when that pops up, because I learned that from my dad. Thanks, Dad. Life is definitely more fun that way, but just being self aware. So that's one. Two is handling emotion. So I always thought being self aware and handling emotions is one bucket, but it's actually more of first is awareness. Then how do you handle that knowing? And sometimes you just choose, oh, I'll just do it anyways.
Yeah.
But like to me, I used to be super reactive and one self regulation. So you feel something, how do you handle when you're upset? How to calm yourself? What do you how do you respond appropriately? What does that mean? Who does it well? Like, do you have uh, mentors or influencers that you believe, or people around you that do it really well? So just like know how to stay positive under pressure. I know,
Yeah.
I
It's a
know.
hard one.
It's so easy to go negative and negative bias
Yeah.
and victim,
Mhm.
and then be flexible. So I think awareness to handling emotions. And I know I'm going slowly, but I do think like the 5, if you can start thinking through it and tackling each one, will allow you to evolve in this area. Motivation. I didn't know that motivation is about a part of EQ. Did you?
No, I did not know that. Fact of the day. This is great.
Right? Just like, how do you, are you, and we talk about like discipline and motivation and
Yeah.
showing up to the gym, but like setting your own goals
Mhm.
and work to achieve those without anyone watching.
Yeah.
Like what do you
Mhm.
do when people aren't watching?
Yeah.
I think those are always the most interesting thing is to observe oneself while no one's around.
Yeah.
Understanding, so taking small steps to achieve a bigger goal. So a lot of people talk about like climbing a mountain and like knowing, each piece of it, but knowing you can't do it overnight.
Mhm.
So having long-term vision with small-term goals, and that could be career, that could be a project, etc. And then really ability to continue to work despite frustrations,
Mm.
despite setbacks, despite, like in working out, you get sick, you can't go work out. So you got to get back on and re-motivate yourself of like, but your goal is to get strong.
Mhm.
And so that's, I can talk about motivation all day. But now you're thinking awareness, how am I handling emotions, and then motivation. The fourth, and I actually do appreciate women have this more naturally, which is empathy. And we're going to talk a little bit more about it. It's understanding others' feelings and perspective, like putting yourself in their shoes. But here's the caveat, and I didn't appreciate this. Just because you can understand their feelings, you can understand where they're coming from, does not mean you have to carry it.
Yeah.
And maybe the word better is being compassionate,
Hmm.
but I do think it's a superpower to understand where people are at, knowing that like maybe they're having a bad day, maybe something's going on with them, not taking it personally that it's about you. I think that's the key. And want to help others who are hurt or sad, but also knowing when you can't either and
Yeah.
just being understanding. That's like key. And the last, not least, is social skills.
Mm. Yeah.
How are you building and maintaining healthy relationships? How are you getting along with others? Not to be liked, but to be adaptable and like, how do you work with a team, with a group, observing, how are you able to solve problems collectively, not individually, talk through conflicts. So all of this really brings it all together is as you're moving up in your career, as you're managing teams of teams, or even just a team, are you able to bring and interact appropriately and understanding how sometimes you are need to be leading and sometimes you need to be listening and supporting. And so that's the social aspect of all of this.
Wow. I wish I had like a pen and paper here because I was like, I need to write all of this down. And I'm definitely going to go back over and go through that because that's so interesting. There's so many pieces there that I didn't even think about. Like you think about it, but you don't think about it, you know? And I think that's yeah, so many good things to take away. I really like the piece around obviously the social side is understanding, okay, socially, what does that look like? But the fact where you're like, think about other people and like maybe what mood they're in, because sometimes they'll come back to you like the amount of times I've had emails that are just, not the best. And sometimes I'm like, okay, is this because of me? But actually they might be having a bad day, and you forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost taking yourself out of it and looking at it as it's not personal, even though it
Yeah.
feels very personal.
Yeah.
And that's the handling emotions.
Yeah.
And then understanding that we are all people. We have other components to us, other things that are going on in our lives. And does that mean you need to be talked to badly?
Yeah.
It's okay also to set the boundary to say, looks like something is going on. Are you
Yeah.
okay?
Hmm.
And if they're not able to talk about it, let's reschedule, you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah, I agree. I have a question just
Yeah.
because I've actually really felt that I haven't been able to, I suppose, I say control myself, but, I'm self aware, but there's times where I've struggled and I've been like, it's really frustrating and I get wound up by things. I'm very much aware of it and I try not to be. But then I've joined a business recently and I found it really easy to, understand, be self aware and kind of step away and be that third party looking over everything and not taking anything personally. Do you think it can be like an environmental thing, or do you think it is purely just you and not managing yourself well?
Believe in like energy and
Mhm.
people reflecting one another
Yeah.
and creating an environment that if you feel safe, it's a lot easier to psychological safety. It's a lot easier to be able to communicate and be
Mhm.
vulnerable.
Yeah.
And then there's other places where if you don't feel safe, you are a lot more on survival and defensive mode.
Yeah.
And it is a lot harder to
Mhm.
process the emotions because you're trying to survive and you're trying to be able to communicate. And really, in those moments, I agree. I do believe environment does matter. But then if the choice you make of being there and being again it's part of that motivation and like choices you make. I choose to be here, so here's how I want to show up. And so yes, environment does make it easier, but then changing the narrative of
Yeah.
what is in my control, what can I do?
Yeah.
And the question maybe is, should I even be here? Like, is that something to be more self-aware
Yeah.
versus, and then sometimes is yes, it just need to work through or pull this person to the side,
Yeah.
have a conversation. Let's see how they show up. Let's see how I show up.
Yeah. Control the controllables, basically,
Yes,
if you're able to. Um,
absolutely.
yeah. And if we talk more around self awareness, because I think this is amazing and everyone should be self aware, how do you actually develop self awareness? I mean, there's so many books, right? But beyond the usual, just like self help advice, like what's worked for you?
It's a lot of feedback. And again, it's feedback from people you really trust and feedback maybe you don't, but you just want to understand perception. Because again, perception unfortunately is reality. And even if it's not, you like, so what I would say a 360 feedback at work if you're able to gain diverse perspectives. So not just the people you're friends with, not the people you like, but actually getting a few of the things maybe you don't know well, but like how do they perceive you? Maybe you don't get along. Okay. Understand in where they're at. Does not mean you have to go change yourself fully, but just every data point matters. Now, what you do with them, that's up to you. The other thing that I've done really appreciated is I've actually asked my friends and people that are very close to some, what are the top three characteristics that I bring value or that you like really appreciate me?
Mhm.
And what are the three things that frustrate you or that I don't show up well? And just like almost gathering that in a outside of a environment
Yeah.
might help with that awareness too.
Mhm.
Because those are the people that know you very well, just in case you're just to round it out. So that's one. Journaling. There's different types of journaling. And I know, oh my God, I just journaling in general. One thing is being reflective and understanding your patterns and triggers. And what I do, and you could do this like every week, you could do this every day, you could do this every month, is a business journal. But you can have a personal or business, you can
Yeah.
have one. But it's really just going, how this week, what are the things that where I showed up really well, or where are the things I reacted, and maybe what did I learn from that? Or if I could do it again, how would I do it now, having a moment to breathe or looking back,
Yeah.
being a quarterback and looking at your film after, it's so much more, oh, yes.
Yeah.
And then slowly you start to build that skill.
Yeah.
So, like a journaling. And then the last, and maybe this is woo woo, but I do think taking maybe not journaling, but like mindful walks or meditating or just being, whatever that looks
Yeah.
like. Maybe it's creativity that is not related to work will allow you to maybe stay more in tune of like
Mhm.
your emotions when you feel good
Yeah.
or when you feel more at peace.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I did some of the journaling stuff. I did a lot of it last year, and I still do it now. I'm definitely not that, I suppose, committed to it as I was, and I probably should bring it back. But I found it really useful. I used to do it daily, where it'd be like maybe three things that what like went well in that day, and
Yeah.
then three things that maybe didn't, and then I'd look at okay, how could it have gone better, and then I just did that daily for a while, and also that really helped me especially if you're thinking around gratitude as well, like what went well and like be grateful for things that happened throughout your day. That always lifts your mood. And you're like, actually, it wasn't as bad as I thought because this happened. Even if it is just like, oh, I had a conversation with this person and that put a smile on my face. I would write literally something like that down, or, this person messaged me today, whatever it may be. But I found that really useful when I did that last year.
I every morning, no matter where I am, what I'm doing, I always do three. I always ask myself, what are three things I'm grateful for? And it just starts your day a little more,
Yeah.
enjoyable.
Yeah.
But also just like reminding me, even the small things are worth appreciating.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. And if we're looking around that, I suppose, emotional side of things, because it's quite easy to get emotional, especially in a business environment. I've got a lot more emotional over the years, I have to say. It's hard for you to sometimes regulate it. But What does like emotional professionalism look like in moments like when there's a lot of pressure or conflict?
Well, one, I have a little bit of a tip if
Mm.
helping to regulate. There's two things, and this is just maybe silly, but if for me, I didn't know this, but like if you feel like you're stressed out, you want to cry, you feel, the emotion and you want to stop it in a meeting or etc. Like yes, you can. I've turned around before. I've asked for a minute and then came back.
Hmm.
So that's okay to do that.
Yeah.
I've also been just recently told if you squeeze your butt cheek, it actually takes it away from the thought and like changes like your just where you're focusing on your body and it helps.
Okay.
And the third, which a lot of speakers do when they get anxious or nervous, etc. Like there's all these little tips. They have a paper clip or something in their hand that helps with regulating to create like a more consistent, even if you feel high, low, but like again, reminding you like almost grounding
Yeah.
is the activity.
Hmm.
So that's little small tips. One of the things I was looking at with emotional intelligence is, and I mentioned this, is where women rank higher is empathy and social skills. And we talked a little bit about empathy. The social skills is just if you think about the social patterns that encourages women to be more ability to like share their like express their emotions.
Yeah.
Like it's a little more, even though my dad told me like, don't you do that? But he thought he was raising a son. So
Ugh.
there's that. And then men really have, and again, it's societal pressure around keeping their composure.
Mm,
So self-regulation and stress management.
mm.
So those are things that men and women like based on some like scores and IQ or EQs and different types of tests that has shown. And I'm not surprised because I do think if you look out, those are just almost societal acceptance. And in essence, I think the role of social conditioning or emotional professionalism is a good thing to really understand for what that looks like for yourself and how if you want to be more consistent and keep your composure, how do you do that but still be vulnerable, authentic? That I would say is the hard balance.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't know, for you, it's just like I want to be me. I want to be able to express my emotions, but I also don't want to be like a roller coaster.
Yeah. That it is a struggle as well. I think I've got a lot better at it. I'm overall quite a positive, optimistic person. So like I don't if I'm going through like times of struggles, like I will be positive about it as much as I can. And that helps me and we're walking around singing or whatever, which it can be annoying. But that keeps me, thinking, like say positively and not letting it get to me sometimes. But then it's difficult because that doesn't always happen. And I like the fact one, I'm gonna squeeze my bum cheeks, by the way. Now you said that. I'm gonna give that a go. But I think if you're in a work situation, if you need to step away from something, do so. Or if you have a heated conversation, the amount of times I've had a conversation stepped away from it and then gone back and actually apologized for maybe what I said or how I said it on reflection and was like, actually, maybe that wasn't the best way to handle it. And that's yeah, for me, the way I try to carry myself is the best way, but it doesn't always happen. So sometimes you just have to apologize and try not to do it again, basically.
100%. And I mean, I still did it even yesterday. I, reacted and I acknowledged it, but I did it also because it's we're still human. Like I think quickly acknowledging it and not making it a repeatable or like not learning from it. Yes,
Yeah,
that's different, but like still allowing yourself to be human.
yeah,
It's just, I mean, otherwise it would be really hard to live a life of perfection.
yeah. Although we all try, it just doesn't always
Yeah,
work. We might
yeah,
think we are perfect, but yeah, but I'm definitely not. Do you have actually, I mean, you kind of mentioned it, but do you have any like stories where your social awareness had like a real impact? Like even if you were just like showing up, like, yeah, any examples?
yeah. I have a lot of different ones. It's one of the things that I used to do. So let me talk you through. I learned this. I was at a Stanford and Young Presidents Organization Building Better Boards discussion.
Mm.
And it really helped me, and I'll tell you the story with it, but like it really helped me understand this like 2x2 parameter.
Mhm.
And what it is, it's power and emotion, or like how you are you warm or cold. So if you think high power, low power, warm and cold.
Okay.
So like if you think about the matrix at the top, high powers, feeling confident, strong, you're not like lowering yourself, you're
Yeah.
not diminishing yourself, like that's the low power. And then warm is like, hey, like how's it going? Where are you at? Like very friendly and chummy. And low or cold is more data, facts,
Yep.
value driven outcomes. And why am I sharing this? Well, I'm sharing this because when I first got into presenting myself or selling, and this was just like maybe a couple of years after I just started in my career, and I was in a sales meeting, and I was with my boss at the time, and I walked in, and I always thought, you know, the chummy and like friendly and becoming friends with the prospect or the customer or the client, whatever. I thought that was like my superpower, was to really connect.
Yeah.
And that's great. The problem with it, and I still was confident. I was, it was like high warm.
Yeah.
And that's my natural state. The problem with it is when you're first meeting with people, and of course be friendly, value, especially in business, value, purpose, and creation, like really being aware of why you're there, why they're there, and showing that first is actually more valuable of impression, because they're like, you told me something I didn't even know, or you gave me an idea of how I can maximize my business, or
Yeah.
wait, I think I want to learn more, while still being, you can choose how you go from cold to warm, but like almost I had to really think through, how do I, when I first show up, actually don't lean too much, like be friendly, but like start with value. So that's like a really interesting thing I've been starting to apply
Mm.
in my how do I want to show up.
Mm.
And it's also okay if you choose to go low power with someone.
Okay.
So what do I mean by that? If someone is maybe intimidated by you, or they report to you, but you want to empower them, it doesn't mean like you're just more like listening or asking questions
Yeah. Mhm.
or understanding, but still choosing that, you
Yeah.
know?
So, question on that: when you talk about going in with the value first, and now I'm just asking because I'm curious.
Sure. Yeah.
If I'm going into, say, a meeting with a client, whatever it may be, so you would talk about the value, basically what you're there for, before you kind of have a chinwag at the end.
I focus on what they're there for,
Okay.
It's, of course, it's good to like, don't be a robot. Don't just
Yeah.
show up and be like, this is the outcome, be a human.
Yeah.
It's still a relationship build, but really dive into knowing what they're looking for, or understanding
Yeah.
what they would like to achieve, or what they would like to, like, by the end of this,
Mm.
what would be the most valuable thing.
Yeah.
And you might know that, so lean there first
Mm.
while building out the relationship of getting to know one another throughout it. But if the whole thing is based on friendliness and relationship, and not a lot on why you're there, I just would be cognizant of wasting people's time,
Yeah.
especially executives. Well, anyone, to be frank.
Yeah, but especially at that, more senior level, people don't have the time, right? So, yeah, you want to
Time is a
keep it.
currency.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. And if we're keeping around like the relationship piece, like how do you manage relationships across like different levels of power and actually influence the people around you?
So I hate saying hierarchies, but if you think
Mm.
through just like the different levels, Um, first is building trust. Consistency is a big thing. Doing what you say, saying something, and people feel like you're reliable in that, and reducing the daylight between what you say and what you do, because actions just I mean, I'm saying everything. I think a lot of people have heard this, but actions speak louder than words. But consistency in actions also multiply it.
Yeah.
So that's one. Active listening. I actually thought I was good at listening, but I'm not. I've gotten so much better because I also believe it's a showing respect
Yeah.
to really like valuing different levels of input
Mhm.
from the top to entry level
Mm.
and ensuring that their voices are heard, they feel like you heard it, you repeat something, you rephrase it,
Yeah.
you connect. It's also a negotiation tactic as well. So like
Yeah.
people want to be heard. They don't want to be interrupted. They don't want to be overshadowed or just like you have your own agenda.
Yeah.
So that relationship, I think looking at people as people, everyone's
Mhm.
human,
Mhm.
like just understanding different perspectives. And the third, so I put that into overall, but the third one I would say is adaptability.
Okay.
Being able to communicate, tailor your communication to the person that they have a different culture, different point of view, different way that they some people are learners
Yeah.
or visual listeners. Other people are literal learners or, understanding. Do you know that about that person? Do you know who they are as a human? Do you remember things about them
Yeah.
at work and outside of work?
Mhm.
And it's so funny how those small things consistently create the trust,
Yeah.
which then builds a really healthy relationship.
Yeah, you mentioned consistency a lot there, which I think is so
I
true.
did.
No, I loved it. I think it's so true. Like consistency, actions do speak louder than words, but then you have to be consistent with your actions. And the more that you are, people will trust you. If you deliver what you say you're going to do and on time and all these things, people will trust you, but you have to be consistent with it. Using that term, you have to do it more than once. Yeah, I think that's so key. And I'm curious, obviously you do journaling, you seem very self-aware and reflective on yourself. What's the most uncomfortable truth you've learned about yourself as a leader? And how did you respond to it?
I mean, I was very impulsive. And in ways, it's really, I don't know if you've taken the whole Hogan test.
No, I haven't. Nope.
So it's like a leadership test that a lot of people do if they're hiring someone
Okay.
or looking at promoting someone or where they are in regards to their leadership development.
Okay.
So it's called the Hogan test. There's others, by the way, that people do. I remember before that, or what it showed is my risk tolerance is like I could take crazy amount of risk. And with that also comes not really having to think through all the pieces before I make a decision. And because of that, like if you go rewind it or double click, it's in being also could create impulsiveness and reactiveness by going so fast, by going so quickly. And that was really uncomfortable to me because it has helped me in a lot of ways to take quick decisions, move forward, move faster.
Yeah.
But it also has hurt me now because being able to understand a little, at least giving it a moment and understanding the why of doing the action. Does this actually make sense for like, based on all the things that are priorities
Yeah.
and having a little bit of a plan and prepare and sticking to that longer than just, a month or two creates back to the consistency of leadership, creates the ability to show that you're going to achieve what you say you're going to do while also being more thoughtful and intentional
Mm.
and not reacting. So,
Yeah.
like those pieces of strength that might be a strength
Yeah.
might also be a weakness, and knowing how to, I don't know, like balance it out for
Yeah.
yourself was really, that was tough. That was tough. I was achievement based, impulsive driven, taking huge risks,
Yeah.
and like tweaking that was uncomfortable.
I can imagine. But at least you're aware of it and, sometimes you can lean into it and take those risks if you need to. And then other times it's like, actually, maybe I should just get a second opinion on this or just like hold the
Right.
reins. But yeah, the fact that you're aware of that now, although it was uncomfortable at the time, hopefully it's got better. Hopefully it's not too uncomfortable anymore.
Yeah, no, I think once I realized predictability is a good leadership trait, it's a
Hmm.
great leadership trait.
Yeah.
And knowing that I was more unpredictable, even though I had a lot of people that I have a lot of people that we love working together and we support each other.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I can't even imagine how hard I was if I pivoted so often or, what I mean, okay, we did this, but like it's not working. And like instead of giving it a little more time, being more consistent in that way and being more predictable,
Yeah.
I think has allowed us to really be able to accomplish so much more and build that trust.
And I think it creates a safe environment almost because people know what to expect, what they're walking into, and it's yeah, hopefully easier for people and they can plan around it as well, which is
Yeah,
useful.
exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot going on already. I don't want to burden
Yeah.
my team or others or even friends that, for them to not know what to expect.
Yeah.
And so it's okay to change your mind, but just like being intentional about it.
Exactly. And I think you talk about friends, I think both inside and outside of work, like I think being intentional but also being predictable is a good trait for sure.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And communicating, being able to communicate, and we could talk about this later, is that was really hard of it, being able to communicate why you're changing your mind so everyone gets behind it, communicating maybe you don't know the answers and like even though you're supposed to or you think you're supposed to. I
Yeah.
think that's really something to keep refining.
Communication is key. Yeah, I've seen it, and I've been in quite a few companies, and especially companies that are like fast-growing startups, or there's lots of like mergers and acquisitions, and you have to communicate obviously as much as you can. Because I've seen like the negative effect when you don't, and I've been sometimes part of it, and it's not a great feeling. So you want everyone to be involved as much as possible. But I think people forget that. I think people kind of just so honed in on what they're doing and they forget that actually there's other people that are affected that don't know as much as you. So you have to try and communicate with them.
Yes, bring them along. I think one of the things that I've learned in difficult conversations is the acknowledgement of it.
Okay.
Like what a strength it is to be able to say this is tough. Yeah, we didn't catch it in time, or this person did end up move, you know, leaving, or this is something that
Yeah.
is our fault, right?
Yeah.
And being able to say, we are here, we have learned, we know that this is a problem, and now this is what we're going to do differently. And moving forward, how do we do that together? Like, what a strength that is, you know?
Yeah, that's powerful for sure. And if we're obviously talking about emotional intelligence, why do you think it's become like such a core conversation in leadership today?
Well, a couple things. Great timing with everything that's going on with AI too, is the environment is so dynamic right now. It has been for actually for a while, but specifically the last 5 to 10 years,
Yeah.
if you look at it.
Hmm.
And I think one of the things that's interesting is technical skills or like very, you know, alone aren't sufficient.
Yeah.
You can't just be really good at your job anymore. And because part of it is also there's other tools that are coming
Yeah.
and are going to be able to support you in
Yeah.
that. So leaders, because we have more diverse teams, hybrid teams, various different, remote, not remote, being able to adapt to change. Change is really uncomfortable. Transitions are very hard constantly. And also how to bring everyone together that they feel included and valued. I think that's why being a machine, being a robot, being unemotional, just doing the job is not enough at all anymore.
Yeah. Agreed.
And we're as humans complex. And so like absolutely understanding your own emotions, how you communicate those emotions and the people that are around you. And then really thinking of what the ultimate goal is to achieve that.
Yeah.
EQ or emotional intelligence, it's again, I keep saying superpower, but it is. It really allows you to lead
Mhm.
or even be a part of a team on such a higher frequency.
I think a really good point actually around the AI piece. We're having obviously multiple conversations around it. We're seeing obviously multiple businesses that are, building it. And if we talk about it from a recruitment standpoint, because obviously that's what I do, but these companies that are building these literally robots who can do the job of a recruiter. But I think having the skill around emotional intelligence, that's what's gonna tear you apart because these, as like AI robots, whoever's talking to the candidates and clients, like they aren't people, So if you can lean into that skill set, then you shouldn't be replaced. And I don't necessarily see, AI replacing people completely, but I think that I mean you'll know more than me, but I think that there's a lot of opportunity for AI to take over a lot of the market and a lot of the roles that are out there from a technical perspective, but they can't do this necessarily.
It's definitely augmented. And I think like looking at it as a tool,
Yeah.
but you said it really well. The customers or clients,
Yeah.
people are still the customers, right? People are still people. You're not selling, you might be selling to a company, but you're selling to a person at a company or
Mm,
you're engaging. And I think that's where people are still going to want to have that forward. Really, like if you can communicate better, if you can understand them, if you can connect the technology or the tool or the service to what they need,
yeah.
I think that's going to continue to be something really important
Mhm.
because machines can talk to each other,
Yeah.
but like,
Yeah, it's
it
different.
only goes so far.
They can't be going to some of these events and taking their customers out, That's got to be you to do that. So lean into it. And I'm curious, like obviously we're talking about say hiring, but building teams and having obviously those within your company. How do you I suppose, embed emotional intelligence into the culture from like day one when someone joins or
I like the concept of threes, so I always give like the examples of threes. I think embedding it would involve recruiting,
Yep.
prioritizing emotional intelligence competencies
Okay.
during hiring. And how do you test that? One of our three things that we look at is, you know, hungry, humble, smart. And humble is really hard to test, but you can talk through stories or examples or just like see how they processing.
Yeah.
I think that's key. It's from the start. It's who you hire,
Yeah.
uh, how you're training, offering workshops. I mean, EQ is tied to mental health too.
Hmm.
So like really doing what are some of the roles or like role playing of self awareness? What are tools that people can use? We talked about a
Hmm.
few. How do you communicate more clearly?
Yeah.
Are there frameworks that you can be thinking about? Last but not least, in any way, and this is something I constantly ask myself. Like yesterday, I reacted and I was like, oh, I'm not modeling the behavior of a leader that demonstrates emotional intelligence
Yeah.
in my daily interaction. But it's okay. Like I acknowledged it right away and I knew that was something that I was feeling but didn't need to be communicated. But on the flip side is just holding yourself accountable.
Yeah.
Like how do you show up with yourself too? How do you talk to yourself? And I think that part of what I've seen is how I talk to myself, my thoughts are then reflected of how I communicate and how I think about others and refining that. Start with yourself almost. You will be able to show and model that behavior better.
Yeah, I love that one. And I do think something that I've always done is, yes, we can train people and we can give them, all the knowledge around obviously what they're doing in their roles, but also just like general how to be a good person and actually try and teach them how to be self-aware throughout, when they're working with you. So like there's many of times we've been in difficult situations and with my team, I'll pull them up if they reacted badly and I'll try and speak to them so they can understand and we can understand what their triggers are so that next time they can maybe react a different way. But actually trying to coach them through some of these things for me has worked like for my team, and hopefully, that's really helped them. But then I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't done all the work myself, which we spoke about before. Over, I suppose, the pandemic, I spent the time really honing in on myself and being self aware and looking at, you know, who I am really, which I found so beneficial. And hopefully, I came out of that and helped and still helping others with it.
I will say being able to tell others what to do is a lot easier than starting with yourself
Yeah.
and asking, I representing the things that I would love to see in others.
It's really hard to be honest with yourself as well, and like holding yourself accountable. At the moment I'm doing this fitness thing. One of my best friends, she's fantastic, and she's helping me and training me, but holding myself accountable every single day. Like I have to hit like 10,000 steps, and then I've got obviously workouts, and it's like I mean, we've got a plan, so she'll know weekly if I don't do it. But then also for myself, like I can't let myself down. I have to hold myself accountable. And yesterday I was naughty. Don't tell her; she will watch this anyway. But I didn't hit my steps, and I feel really guilty about it. So I'm like, okay, that's a blip. Moving on today, I'm going to hold myself accountable and make sure I do these things. But it's difficult, and it's so easy just to go to, I'm going to sit on the sofa and eat chocolate because really that's what I want to do.
But did you notice, and what you said there is there was a blip.
Hmm.
I felt guilty, but then I regrouped and I went on. And I think that's a part of that emotional intelligence of we will not always show up perfectly. We create patterns and behaviors that allows it to be easier over time,
Yeah.
but almost like being just as understanding
Yes.
of, oh, well, you know what? There was a lot going on, or I
Mhm.
did need this day and it's okay. I'll do it tomorrow. Oh, and I don't know, like that was really beautiful. The fact that you were able to say, I'm going to be, yes, fine. I didn't hit it, but I'm going to do it tomorrow. Or maybe I'll do a little more, just kind of like balancing it out. I think that is the regulation of the 5 steps around
Mhm.
even with yourself.
No, I agree. Yeah, definitely. Well, this has been awesome. I've loved it. It's been so
Same.
useful, and I will re-listen to it and write everything down because, yeah, there were so many good points in there. So we have a closing tradition on the podcast. So there's a question that we ask everyone. So this question is, what is one piece of advice you'd give your younger self?
I wish was able to do this is vulnerability, embrace vulnerability.
Wow.
And it's not a weakness. It's really a strength that creates these beautiful connections, authentic ones, and also drives meaningful leadership. We
Wow.
are not perfect. We are not machines. We do have various parts of us, and being able to express that is such an incredible moment for not just yourself, but for the other people or other person that you're communicating with.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's a good one. I like that. Now that's got me thinking about stuff as well, because I think that's the hardest thing is being vulnerable, both inside and out of work. For me, that's something that I've always struggled with. Yeah, I might have to look into it a bit more.
Absolutely. And it's whatever your version of that is, but saying you don't know something, saying that you're not in a good place today, being able to just communicate it, or just being like, I've just been really hard on myself, you know? Like, how crazy is that to say out
Yeah.
loud? But like, it's good. Those are good things to be able to understand that we will have moments that are not perfect.
And it's hard when you are a perfectionist. But I think it's as something as you get older, you learn, you're not perfect. Nothing will ever be perfect, but you can keep trying.
Or just know that if you get better 1% each day, good enough. And not even each day, just overall. And so thank you so much for doing this and allowing me to be on your podcast. And I really hope this is helpful for everyone that's listening.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking the time. And like I say, it was awesome, really, really useful for me and hopefully for many others. So I appreciate it.